Greetings, my dear friends. Today a very exciting story awaits us. I suggest we start right away. Miram is a place where super people lived. With one blow of their blade, they could turn the river back. And to cut the mountain in half, almost everyone could there. In this world, people fight only during the day, and in the evening they can drink beer at the same table as if nothing had happened. For them this is the norm, but for the ordinary world, this is not acceptable, because if he is an enemy, then sitting at the table with such a person is simply unacceptable. Fights and even battles of clans are a common thing there. It has always been there, and this did not surprise any of the local residents. Basically, this happened among representatives of famous and noble clans of that world. Just like now, some guy with a bag on his body was trying to run away from someone. People who were born in one of the clans were faithful to him until the end of their days. The guy who ran away was our main character. He thought about how difficult this world is and began to miss his past. When suddenly the bald guy almost caught up with the fleeing guy, he struck with his sword next to the other guy's head. And in this way, our main character lived in this world for more than 7 years. He compared himself to a stray dog. He shouldn't have died so stupidly, from some thug. After all, he has not yet fulfilled his main mission in this world. At that moment, the guy remembered the words of his mentor, who gave him a sword as an inheritance and told him to make a living with weapons, because this is his calling. He also asked that our main character enter into battles only if he is confident that he can defeat the enemy. This is the only way he can feed himself. Although the mentor replaced the father of our main character, the guy didn't even know his name. The guy sat and listened to how some 2 unfamiliar guys were planning something. One of them was talking about some kind of drug, and the second about the secrets of martial art. Our main character sat and listened to them carefully, but still could not understand what they were talking about. This is how the guy got into this adventure. Now he had to fight some bald thug. He attacked our main character blow after blow, and the guy only managed to put up blocks. This battle was clearly difficult for the guy, but he was not going to give up. He released shuriken from his sleeve, which were hidden there especially for such occasions. One of them had almost reached the bald guy's face. His eyes were literally 20 centimeters away. But he was able to repel this shuriken with a light swing of his sword. Our main character began to grimace, which made the bald guy very angry, but he said that he expected this. One of the shuriken stuck into the leg of the pursuer, a thug who was getting closer and closer to the guy, and he was already standing on the edge of the building. Our main character said that it was just a paralyzing poison, it wouldn't kill him. It was such a technique, he hid his energy in the darkness and gusts of wind. To which the bald guy said that he wanted a fair fight. There was no need to disgrace him, but it was better to finish him off right away. The surprised guy stood and looked at this man who had been chasing him for an hour. Our main character decided to simply jump off the roof, saying that he was tired of listening to this guy's nonsense and was not worth pursuing. To which the bald guy replied that such scoundrels as the guy are always overtaken by karma and God will punish him. But our guy didn't understand what that bald thug meant. As soon as our main character found himself in this unfamiliar world, he often cried out to the gods to help him, but everything was to no avail. The guy appeared in this world in the body of a beggar. He was able to survive in this world only because he wanted to become stronger. In this place, absolutely everything was decided by force, and not a single day went by without fights. At first, the guy begged for alms. He endured ridicule and endless adversity for a huge amount of time, only to become stronger. The only thing he had was his willpower and spirit, thanks to which he was able to overcome these obstacles. Thus, he ended up at the first-class stage, although our main character achieved success, but he was not at all proud of it. A huge locked door appeared in front of the guy, as he called it, the door to power. The guy constantly wanted to develop. Each next step was very important for him. The guy constantly read books about various secrets of martial arts, combat tactics, and everything like that. He got 5 pills of the drug, which was a great joy for him. He thought that if he ate them, he would be able to break through the barrier that stood between him and the power that he wanted to achieve. The guy was happy as never before, because today he would reach the top and become a very strong warrior. As a friend, that bald thug appeared behind our main character, who realized that the women's underwear that our guy stole was just a distraction, but in fact he stole potions and martial arts secrets. For some reason, the guy did not hear that a man had appeared behind him, and he, of course, did not understand what he wanted from him. The bald thug simply looked at our main character in surprise and said that he was a rude person. And the guy stood and didn't understand why this bald man didn't attack his secret, because he could have finished him off at any moment. The bald guy began to take out his sword and prepare for battle. And he asked who sent our guy. Our main character also began to take out his sword and said that he does not serve anyone and never intends to, and he stole secrets only for himself. The bald thug said that he has no right to take these secrets, because they belong to the future warriors of the Ami clan. The guy was shocked because he realized that a guy from the Ami clan was standing in front of him. The bald thug said whoever steals secrets and potions from the clan must die. But our main character was not going to just die and was already ready for battle. The guy who had become a first-class warrior from nothing, now had to fight with an equally unrivaled fighter from an elite clan. Our main character didn't even have time to do anything before the bald thug cut off his head with one blow. The guy's body fell to the ground, and his killer stood above him and simply looked into God knows where. Considering that the guy went through such huge trials and got here with great difficulty, now he died so quickly. Suddenly something happened, and the guy began to feel his body again. He was in some office and abruptly stood up from the table with a cry. He doesn't understand where he is. He began to look around, because he had just died at the hands of a thug, but in a new body. This, of course, was noticed by the teacher who was giving the lecture right now. The professor asked if this guy was all right and why he was disrupting the lesson. But our main character just stood there and didn't know what to answer, because it was a professor from his department. He assumed that he was now on Earth and had been reborn. But the guy couldn't believe it and he suggested that maybe it was a dream, some kind of strange dream. And the professor will continue to ask the guy why he jumped up. He asked, "Maybe you have complaints about my class?" The guy decided that he should come closer to the teacher and talk to him. The surprised professor did not understand what this student wanted, who for no apparent reason just started yelling in the middle of the lecture. Our protagonist asked him to just hit him once with a pointer in the face. This shocked the teacher. He stood and did not even know what to answer the guy. As suddenly it dawned on the professor, he said in a voice, "Wait a minute. Another returner?" Surprised, our main character asked again in surprise, "Returned?" But alas, the guy did not get an answer to this question. On the way home, this thought did not leave his head. Arriving home, the guy immediately lay down on the sofa and began to look at least some information about these returnees. And he found some answers. When two dimensions connect, cracks form between the worlds. People who hit the earth are called reborn. The guy sat and thought that it was because of these cracks that he got to Murim. Of course, the reincarnated had their own characteristics, namely, they had a high level of mana, and in the event of awakening, they received a unique combat class. Our main character was glad, because now he can get a unique combat class. He could not even dream of such a thing. Of course, clans and a large number of countries closely watched such people. The main thing is that the classes should be good. The guy was tired of reading all this. He just threw the phone away and decided to do something else, because he had not been in this world for a long time. The guy decided to turn on the TV and immediately got on the news. He wondered what was happening in the world right now. The presenter said that today they sold a crystal elixir at an auction for a huge price. This elixir gave eternal life, and the guy who bought it was familiar to our main character. They met in another world and he was rather weak, but on Earth he can now live a long life. He got tired of listening to it, and he decided to look for something else, when suddenly he came across an advertisement, in which the girl told about the recently created Special Academy of Knights and Magicians. The guy sat in surprise and watched this ad. It was a great idea, because future heroes will be able to reveal their potential, and this clearly interested our main character. Also, the advertisement showed various new technologies for knights and magicians, for example, a translator earring that knew all the languages of the world. But immediately after that, a new advertisement began, which carried complete nonsense about some kind of elegance pills. The guy immediately turned off the TV after that. It was clear that the guy was not interested in them. The tired-looking boy sighed heavily and thought about something. He himself did not notice how he changed his position with sitting to recumbent. The guy lay and thought what happened in one day with him and tried to put everything in order in his head. Once upon a time, a crack suddenly appeared on the earth that connected two dimensions. Through him, the goddess Pangaea spoke to ordinary people. She spoke very politely to them. Of course, this event raised a wave of panic around the world. Not a single person understood what was happening. And the goddess offered them existence and a mutually beneficial exchange for defeating the monsters that served as a demon from her home dimension. It allowed the hero to take the enemy's booty and war trophies from these monsters. And, of course, there were a huge number of people who wanted to, and in the body of very strong monsters there were mana stones that accumulated energy. They were very valuable. With the help of these stones and the goddess, a real energy revolution took place on Earth. Everything began to develop very quickly. And after the battle with the monsters, the heroes received amazing artifacts that were scattered all over the planet. There were various healing potions that could cure a person in an instant, as well as various magical weapons. Thus began the age of great heroes. The guy, of course, was glad that he was able to return to Earth, but everything has changed a lot since the moment when he was here. Sure enough, it was very adaptable after another dimension. The guy decided to try using techniques from the previous dimension. Perhaps they would work here. The guy tuned in and began to meditate. It was a special move in the world where he was recently killed by a bald thug. But alas, nothing happened, although our main character wanted to escape from Urima, but now he has lost his fighting skills. Suddenly, unexpected for the guy himself, someone began to call him on the phone. It was his childhood friend, whom he had not seen since he entered the other world. Joyful, he immediately picked up the phone and asked if it was her. The girl confirmed that it was she, after which she said that she was glad that the guy had returned to Earth because he had been gone for 4 years. The surprised guy said that he had been gone for 7 years, and he did not understand why time on Earth flows differently. It was a common practice. Someone stayed in another world for 10 whole years, but returning to Earth, it turned out that he had been gone for only a year. Also, the girl pinned our main character by asking the professor to hit him in the face. Of course, as soon as one of the returnees appeared, everyone knew about it, because during the awakening they would not receive a unique class. But our main character was told about this by his girlfriend, and he himself did not even know what an awakening test was, because he had not been on this planet for 4 whole years. After that, the girl said that the guy urgently needs to go and take this test, because this is a lottery ticket that can turn your whole life upside down. Our main character sat and did not understand anything at all. For him it was a huge influx of information in one day. Suddenly, the girl told the guy that something strange was happening now, because there were already 2 returnees at their faculty, including our hero. The guy immediately asked how much the heroes earn on planet Earth now. To which the girl said that all the heroes are fabulously rich. The next day, our main character came to the place where the awakening took place. The weather was very good, it did not portend trouble at all. The guy did not walk along the path, he was photographed by the entire press, because he returned. Our main character, of course, was surprised to see so many paparazzi in one place. He had not seen this for a long time. In addition to the audience, there were quite famous artists who sang music and supported all the heroes who came to the awakening. That's how, for example, a big guy came with his parents to support him. He also came here for a revival. Or this girl with her mother, who wanted to become a magician like her father. She really wanted to please the gods. But alas, no one supported our main character, because he had no parents, and only a friend who was busy that day. Suddenly, someone from the press, looking at our main character, said that this was one of the returnees. The guy froze for a second, and everyone around pointed a finger at him. The guy was pleased, but at the same moment he didn't know what to do or how to behave. Suddenly the entire press began to insult the guy and ask him to give at least some comment. The guy started saying that he didn't even have time to come up with a signature to sign their autographs. Suddenly someone from the press shouted for the guy to just move away and not interfere with everyone's escape. The surprised guy didn't know what to say, because he thought that everyone was running towards him. But the entire press bypassed the guy and ran somewhere further. They all ran up to some red-haired girl who had also recently returned home. Our main character, of course, felt ashamed, because it all looked very strange. Our guy also heard that the girl was asked about her brother, who was an S-rank hero, and this was a fairly high rank. After these words, the guy immediately realized that this was some famous family of heroes. While leaving, our main character heard that two guys from the press were wondering where the second one had returned. It was our main character. The guy entered the middle of the building. Everything around was monotonously white and resembled some kind of hospital. The atmosphere in the examination center was quite tense. Everyone around was busy with their own business. As a friend, a notification appeared from the loudspeaker that the awakening test would soon begin. This test was carried out using a spiritual stone, which tests the possibility of awakening. They wished everyone good luck. After these words, all the people ran towards these stones. There was quite a long line of people wanting to take this test and see their class. The woman in the black suit said that the test begins at this moment and no one else will be able to join it. She raised a curtain of this stone, which began to shine throughout the entire hall where this procedure took place. You had to drop a drop of your blood on this stone for it to show its class. And then the first guy approached the stone. He looked very scared. It was clear that he was worried. He pierced his finger with the needle, and a drop of blood fell on this stone. A sound was made and the guy immediately grabbed his head. He shouted that God was speaking to him, which meant that he would become awakened. The girl in a black suit said that the guy was lucky and good results could be expected from him. The screen showed information about this guy and who his god is. He became a vanguard warrior, and his patron god is the god of strength. Our main character looked at it and said that the level and characteristics were similar to the game. The girl in a black tuxedo said that the guy had a high-ranking class, and then congratulated the guy. This guy began to be very happy and said that he had done it. Indeed, this guy pulled out a lucky ticket. Vanguard Wars is a class that always fights on the front line and shoots down enemies. In common people it is called a tank. The rest of the people in black tuxedos were simply writing down some information in their notebooks. They also said that this was not a genius, but the guy was very talented in the future. These people were the heads of the clan. Among them there were clans that were world famous. A huge number of people would like to get there. The next guy also came up and dropped a drop of blood on the stone, but he got the lowest class, namely Porter. The Porter was the lowest ranking class. It was impossible to become a hero with him. The easiest thing was to return to ordinary life. One by one, people passed this test and wanted to become high-class heroes. The girl in the black suit said that someone got the middle class, but she had a huge amount of mana. This was the same girl who wanted to become a magician like her father, and she succeeded. If power characteristics could be pumped up, it was impossible to pump up mana. The girl in the tuxedo asked the next girl to come up, and this was the red-haired girl who had returned. The girl is sure. She went up to the stone and said that it was her. She pierced her finger. The once confident girl turned into a scared one, because she didn't know what class she would get. Her blood began to sizzle violently and began to shine throughout the room. She ended up in the world of Pangea, where the gods lived. The gods immediately knew that this girl had returned. He told everyone to leave, because he would choose her. As a friend of a friend, the huge god came up and said that he also wanted to choose her. The situation became tense. A fight began around the gods, who also wanted to choose this girl. Some kind of black energy with a scythe appeared, which told all the gods to disperse. All the gods instantly said that they would give up and let him take this girl. They all stood and looked in fear. It didn't look like any of the gods. The creature looked like death with a scythe. The girl was classified as a witch, and her patron god is the Reaper god. And the girl in the tuxedo congratulated her on this, saying that the red-haired girl had excellent mana and intelligence. And everyone around the clan heads looked in surprise, because this was the first time they had heard about such a class. And the girl simply smiled and said thank you. After which she immediately ran away from the place where this ceremony took place. People stood around and did not understand what was happening, why such a class had fallen. Some thought that this was some kind of conspiracy, and perhaps curses, but she still had excellent mana characteristics and intelligence. Suddenly the turn came to our main character and he was asked to approach the stone. The surprised guy thought why he was immediately after this girl, perhaps this is a sign of fate. He was still ashamed after that incident at the entrance when he thought that the press was running towards him. The girl in the tuxedo immediately came closer to our main character. Everyone was very surprised, because they found out that this was another one who had returned. Everyone began asking others if there was any information about this guy. And the red-haired girl, having heard this, immediately returned and wanted to see who this guy was. The embittered guy looked at them and thought to himself, because all this time he was in plain sight, and they simply ignored him. And so the guy was told to drop one drop of blood on the stone. The guy stood and tried to calm himself down, because he was very worried. And then a drop of blood reached this stone, everything around began to shine again. When suddenly the guy's face immediately changed, and the guy's face changed to one of surprise. After which he simply froze and exclaimed, "Wow." The people who were standing in line began to vigorously discuss our main character. One of the gods said that the guy was a mercenary in the world of martial arts, which in fact was true. Many gods did not understand where it was, and they were also interested in the question of where it is. One of them said that he heard from the ward that in the world of martial arts there are continuous fights and adventures, a rather specific dimension. He was a returnee, which meant that he had great potential, and many gods wanted to recruit him. And again the gods began to fight, but at that moment already for our main character, because they wanted to return to themselves. Suddenly, some little girl heard about the fights and adventures. She immediately began to run towards our main character, destroying other gods with one wave of her hand along the way. She ran closer to the guy and said that they finally met. It was the perfect ward for her. Other big and strong gods told the girls to move away from our main character. This made the little girl very angry. Then she said that she is the mother of all heroes, she is the goddess of the highest rank, Hildegren. Suddenly, all the gods looked at her in surprise and did not understand how she could become of such a rank. Then she told everyone to get out of her way, because she would destroy anyone. Some of the gods began to contradict her, saying that they have virtues and should not be ignored, because they are goddesses of low rank. She said that this is an ordinary rabble. If they don't like something, then let them attack her. One of the gods said that he would teach her a lesson with a joint attack. But this did not frighten the girl at all, she just grinned and said that they were all cowards. And a huge number of gods ran to her to teach her a lesson. But this was just what she was waiting for, because now she could enjoy the taste of battle, which she had not felt for a long time. She, the main character, stood in surprise and looked at all this. From all this he began to feel dizzy. After a few seconds, the girl was already standing next to the guy, which meant that she had defeated all those low-ranking gods. She stood and looked at our main character, asking him how he feels. The guy said that not very much, after which he asked where he was. And it was a divine vision. The goddess said that he was in one of the many dimensions, a place created by the mother goddess. The guy asked who she was, this girl, after which she introduced and said that she was a living legend. The surprised guy stood and looked. He did not understand whether it was a huge success or still a terrible bad luck. She said that there are not many questions and asked what is the dream of our protagonist. The surprised guy just stood and looked at her, because he did not understand why he asked about this at the first meeting. The patron gods were impossible to deceive, which is why our main character needs to behave confidently. He said that he just wants to enjoy life and that's it. But the goddess did not understand what it was, so she asked again. And the guy said that he wanted to buy a building for military salaries and rent it out in order to regularly receive income. The surprised girl just looked at him. She chose a guy who wants to lead such a life. But she asked him how it was, because he returned from the dimension of battles and adventures. But the guy said that there were a lot of battles there, but there were no adventures. He was an ordinary mercenary tramp who worked with weapons for food. Goddess, I knew what a mercenary was, after which he said that he did the work for pay. After hearing that, she exhaled a little, and after all, the king of mercenaries can also become a hero. But our main character said that he also broke into other people's houses and stole things and the wealth of their owners, after which he sold them. But the goddess said that this is theft and this should not be done. The guy said it was. He told the pure truth of the goddess and did not lie a word. The girl said that the guy is a simple thief, but for some reason he has so much confidence. Although the goddess did not want this, they had already met, which means that the contract would have to be concluded. She said that she would make a hero out of the guy, even if it had to start with his upbringing. The guy did not expect such an answer, because he did not want to be brought up, and it's definitely not possible to get high from life. Hero. Yes, you can just say, fool, it's the same, isn't it, said our main character. To which the goddess maliciously replied that he should just shut up and become her subordinate. But the guy said that he refuses and let some god swordsman or god of martial arts be instead of her, but definitely not her. The girl did not expect such impudence, because the goddess of the highest rank offered the guy an agreement, and he wanted to refuse. She hit our main character and said that he is very arrogant, after which she said to screw him. The people who stood in the hall where the awakening test was taking place were shocked, because our main character just fell like that, as if someone had hit him. The guy recovered already in this hall, saying how cruel the gods are. The guy began to rise to his feet, after which the woman in the suit said that his awakening was complete. The guy asked what class he had, to which the girl said that he should look at the scoreboard. He had the class Rogue Mercenary, and the patron god is still the goddess of heroes. She also gave him the nickname Arrogant Earthly Stupid. Everyone around was shocked, because they had never seen such a class, but since he returned, his class is unique. But our protagonist had a mana stat of 0, and everyone was shocked by it. After all, to use the skills you needed mana, and the guy didn't have it at all. The tuxedo girl congratulated our main character on getting a unique class. She also wanted to add something about his manu, but the guy did not even want to listen to this and said thank you, after which he went towards the door. He thought to himself what a lottery ticket is. The red-haired girl stood and watched the guy all this time. The girl obviously wanted to say something to the guy, but did not dare. She just turned around and started walking away. And our sad main character walked and thought how it could have happened, and whether it was possible that it was some kind of mistake. I wanted to look at the characteristics window, hoping that there would be at least something there. But, alas, the guy was even more upset, because there was nothing at all. Suddenly, he noticed the inscription internal energy, the number of which was 10, he had never heard of such energy, what it meant. In a moment, he began to shine, sparks began to flow from him, and his heart beat 10 times stronger. He said that, although weakly, he felt some kind of internal movement of energy. It was his skill, he was very happy about it, although it was a momentary phenomenon, but he was very happy. He thought it was because he didn't have mana and then he wanted to open the skill window. A huge number of techniques appeared around him, such as the plum blossom ball technique or the ultimate sword, in general, a huge number of techniques that were related to damage and the sword. These were techniques of the third circle, namely, powerful martial arts of the highest rank. These are all the techniques that our main character was looking for, wandering around the world in other dimensions. The guy said that it was as if the doors to the imperial treasury were open to him. Now he knew every secret skill and technique he could imagine. He was flooded with memories from the past dimension. How he knelt in front of a building and begged to be trained in martial arts. The 7 years that he was in that dimension were not in vain, because now he knows the power of his martial techniques better than anyone. The guy grinned and said that now he could make a living with guns again. In the waiting room of the awakened, the guy sat down and began to meditate. Because of this, he began to glow with a blue glow, which was immediately noticed by all the people around. One of the people said that if he was impatient, then he should go to the toilet, why sit down in the middle of the waiting room of the awakened? The guy understood that he needed a higher profound energy technique and he should still raise the level. Now he can get the martial arts he could only dream of. Some clan leaders have already begun to recruit people to themselves, offering various drinks or something like that as support. And the red-haired girl approached a huge number of such chapters and each of them offered her very attractive conditions for entry. Next to this girl stood another who wanted and became a magician like her father. Everyone stood around and discussed their classes, and our main character heard that the owners of unique classes have some special combat chips that depend on leveling up. And the guy immediately realized that he urgently needed to level up in order to understand what it was. Our main character, of course, was offended, because even the smallest clans ignored him. All awakened were asked to leave the waiting room, which meant that something was beginning. It was time for a contest of heroes. Only those who had gone through rigorous training would be able to enter Pangea. Some guy in a tuxedo said he was here to control the match. It was an A-rank hero who represented the Union. Also, this guy said that reporters will not be able to get into this hall and this place is only for the awakened ones. Everyone was asked to wear bracelets that would help them translate the Pangean language, as well as communicate and share information with colleagues. Also, this hero said that dangerous dungeons and deserted hunting places are better to beware, because you can die or fall into a stalemate. In those places there are special illers, these are people who hunt other people, for the sake of glory, profit, and also get rid of foreign heroes for the good of their country. And in the bracelets there are stones with which they can turn to their gods. Everyone began to communicate with their patron gods and ask them for advice. Our main character also decided to try to turn to his goddess to talk to her. He asked if she was offended, to which there was no answer. After which he realized that she was definitely offended. And so the training competition began. First you had to go to the instructor and take a suitable weapon. There was a huge amount of different weapons lying there. After people make their choice they immediately need to approach that man in a tuxedo. The guy decided that he needed to choose a sword that would be comfortable to hold, but he never found anything worthwhile. He took some kind of sword in his hands and said that the weight was distributed evenly, although it wasn't like that, but he still needed to take something. He took this sword and said that he would need a couple more throwing daggers. It was a sword made of hardened steel and throwing daggers, which were each labeled by number. He was told that from that moment on, he was his weapon as a whole. This guy added that it was like chewing gum and you couldn't get it off, but there was no time and it was time to run. "I hope there will be no losers among you who fell to the ground from weakness," said this hero in a tuxedo. The girl who became a magician said that she did not expect this, and no one warned her that she would have to run away. It was necessary to run quite a lot, and our main character had already managed to get exhausted. And the man in the tuxedo began to call the awakened ones chickens, and also began to urge everyone to run faster. This motivated our main character and he said that he would soon become the strongest. Although everyone was full of energy, our main character independently went from a tramp to a martial artist and he could not just lose. And all this so that he could live happily, he ran and was not going to stop. Although it was difficult for our main character, he tried his best. He activated the skill. The surprised guy did not understand what was happening. This task was called the path to becoming a hero. The difficulty level was minimal, and the guy needed to increase his stamina. The patron goddess left her stupid idea. The guy had to complete tasks, but he did not know where to start. He needed to run 5,000 meters, do 150 push-ups, and also sit down 150 times, and for this he would receive an experience point, which would be enough to increase his strength. Our main character is that she is very touchy, because he did not want to do this. The guy decided to try to politely and respectfully address her. He asked what kind of task this was. Alas, the goddess never answered him. Our protagonist saw a resemblance to himself. She was as stubborn as he was. The next day, the guy decided to continue training. He was running. After the last race, the guy decided to continue training on his own, and even after he completed his first task, he continued to train. The guy had a feeling as if his body had lost all human feelings. In the past world, everything was easier, because the system for transferring combat techniques was closed, but here the skills were available to everyone and it was a great chance to prove to everyone that the guy was strong. The guy allocated a minimum amount of time for rest. He constantly trained. It didn't matter to him where he was, what time it was and how he felt. He had only one thought in his head, and that was training. The guy said that every drop of sweat is a small step towards his bright future. Since initially the body of our protagonist was rather weak, training was not an easy task for him. People around were discussing the guy. Due to the lack of mana, he had to pump the body. Some also called the guy names because without mana it was impossible to use skills. They thought so. And some did not believe the guy at all and said that such a thing could never become a hero. But this only motivated our main character. He was sure that soon he would laugh at them. Meanwhile, the guy had already reached the 4th level due to the fact that he constantly trained, and many future heroes were stuck at the 1st level, because they could not fight monsters while they were in training. The guy rejoiced at his success and thanked his patron god Hildegren. Despite the compliments of our protagonist, the goddess was not going to answer him. He constantly addressed her by the bracelet. He wanted to hear at least some instruction from her. But she was very stubborn. She ignored the guy. The guy moved to the local dining room, where all the people were divided into groups and sat, each discussing his own. Our main character looked at them with contempt, because almost everyone there was dissatisfied with something, and the guy was so hungry that he almost fainted, because he constantly trained. Everyone tried to make friends with promising future heroes in order to further interact with each other. The guy decided that it was too late for him to join the company, and he would become a loner. Suddenly, the guy received a notification on his phone from his girlfriend, who was interested in what happened on the awakening test, and why he had not told anything until now. He said that he simply forgot to write. It immediately became clear that the guy was pleased. He would finally be able to share with someone what had happened to him. They had a nice correspondence with the girl. the guy told her everything that happened to him. Suddenly, he said that he had no mana, which the girl, of course, did not immediately believe. A girl with a unique class approached the guy. The guy obviously did not expect this. She greeted him. He did not understand what the star needed from him, because he just sat and did not touch anyone. Our main character immediately texted his girlfriend that Hong Hwa-young, who was a superstar, spoke to him. After that, the guy put the phone aside, because he was wondering what such a famous person wanted from him. He immediately found this girl attractive. He thought to himself that she had broken many men's hearts. She said that she saw how our main character was training today, and asked if everything was in order with him. Surprised, the guy asked how she saw him, because they had not met anywhere today. The girl said she just knew, but they didn't even know each other. The girl said that they are studying at the same faculty and now they are studying materials created from monsters. Our main character asked the girl if it was true that she was the first to return from another dimension. The girl confirmed his words and asked if he really did not remember her, because they were both at the initiation. But our main character was at the university in the past as much as 7 years ago, and all the memories of his studies were rather vague. All thoughts were filled in the past life in Miram. The guy said that he did not remember anything and asked how she knew about him. But the girl immediately said that he, too, had returned from another dimension. And the news of the return literally blew up on the social network. It was difficult to remain in the dark. It was surprising that 2 returnees were at the same faculty at once. The girl added that many called the guy with the 8th grader syndrome. She had an initiation. She did a very strange dance, so it was almost impossible. The guy began to remember his past. Some memories were not the most pleasant and rather embarrassing, but that was 7 years ago. The girl asked how long he lived in another dimension, because she returned to this world after only 1 year. The guy asked why the girl was not going to acquire useful connections like the rest. The girl said that she was much more interested in communicating with our main character, and not with everyone else. Suddenly, a guy came up to them and silently stood and listened. He called the girl's name and said that he was pleased to meet her again, but she replied that she did not know who he was. This guy said he saw her and her brother at a clan meeting. Smiling, the mysterious guy said that he was sitting right at the next table. The girl said that she just had a bad memory. In fact, she thought how annoying it was when she got so tactlessly into someone else's conversation. The guy asked the girl about our main character. Why did they chat so casually? The girl simply replied that they were from the same faculty. The guy turned around and shouted that his friends would come up. They would not interfere. It was some girl with some guy who looked very suspicious. They approached and introduced themselves as girls, and added that they were pleased to meet the younger sister of the sword master. The girl thought about how to end the conversation with them, because she was terribly uncomfortable. Suddenly, a notification appeared for future heroes that the lunch break was over and they had to go to the gym for the next workout. It was a perfect chance for the girl to just walk away, and of course she did. 3 guys still wanted to say something to the girl after her, but then, without turning around, she quickly left them. After that, the 3 said that they also need to leave with some business. One of them complained that he didn't even ask for her number. Our main character thought that it was time for him to go too, because training is his true path. The guy hoped that a new task awaited him, and after a new task a new level. In the meantime, everyone moved from the dining room to the training room. Everyone was asked if everyone ate properly, to which everyone unanimously answered yes. This man invited everyone to warm up. This training room was an imitation of a dungeon. He said that there were goblins waiting inside for future heroes. They weren't too dangerous. Goblins were tough and perfect for processing the skills they had learned. Our main character really liked it, because the goblins' damage is low, but the level of their protection was quite high thanks to magic. The guys really began to like this training because he had long wanted to try out his new vision of the battle techniques. He wanted to use some martial techniques from the past dimension as skills. He had 5 skills researched, some a little stronger, some a little weaker, but in general he could use all of them. At the end, the man in the tuxedo said that for this training everyone would have to split into teams. This confused our main character a little, which was to be expected, because the heroes of Pangea always united in groups or remained with their clan. Perhaps it would even be useful for our main character, he would not hurt to learn how to work in a team. And at the end, the man added that this is a timed task and the results will be seen by representatives of various clans, so you should hurry. Other future heroes teamed up with their acquaintances, but as you understand, our main character had problems with this, because he had no contact with anyone. But at that moment the guy remembered the red-haired star who came up to him to talk. Maybe he could get along with her. And the guy decided to do so. He approached the girl and asked if she wanted to be on the team with him. The girl immediately told him not to let out important details. The guy asked again if she wanted to be in the group, after which he added that the girl was unlikely to like this idea. She had a dissatisfied face. The guy asked if the girl was really unpleasant about his proposal, to which the girl said that that was not the case. She said that she should think about it. The guy was already preparing for the fact that the girl would refuse him. But surprisingly, the girl agreed and said that they would work together, and offered to gather the rest. Of course, finding a team for such a star was as easy as shelling pears, because many wanted to be in the group with her. For the girl it was commonplace, she asked not to quarrel among themselves. But the team didn't take the 3 who came up in the dining room to meet and some other guy with a shield. And also the guy who was the first to approach the girl introduced himself. His class is an assassin. The girl did not react to this and suggested distributing positions for effective work. She divided all the guys into positions and said that she would be in the center with this assassin. The guy suggested that this is how she expresses her interest in him. And it's not just the 2 of them in the center. Our main character thought to himself that it was not in vain that she was a member of a famous family of heroes, because she instantly read and gave clear instructions to each of the team. But she didn't say anything about our main character. She approached him and asked where he would like to be. The assassin and his friend began to discuss why she was asking him where she wanted to be, because he was useless and had no mana. The guy said that he would go ahead, with the guy with the shield. He also heard the 2 talking. Our main character asked the rest of the team members if they were worried, to which everyone said that no one was worried and everything was fine. They entered this cave, where our main character went first and looked around. Our main character has already begun to annoy the guy with the shield, because he constantly chatted something. They had already gone quite far, but they did not see anyone on their way. It was rather strange. One of the team said that he felt energy ahead, to which the guy asked how many there were. To which he replied that there are more than 6 of them and you need to be careful. Suddenly, he felt that they were already very close and were looking at a group of future heroes. He alerted all the other members of the group to be ready. Everyone took up their fighting positions and was ready to repel the attack of the goblins. The shield guy immediately activated his taunt skill. Our protagonist immediately examined, instead of a battle, how it would be better for him to stand up. Meanwhile, the goblins surrounded a group of future heroes, in which there were as many as 2 returned from another dimension. Although the goblins were in more advantageous positions, their intelligence was not at the highest level. There was absolutely no experience in my group, so they were confused and did not know what to do. And the famous red-haired girl was in close combat for the first time. Her confusion was felt. And the goblins climbed on the rampage, as if they were not afraid of anything at all. They wanted to see the limits of possibility and future heroes. Normally I wouldn't be able to goblin strength like that, so I had to come up with something. That is why the attacks were interrupted and the members of the group were slowly pushed back. Perhaps the excitement prevented them from showing their abilities. Our protagonist understood that if this continues like this, then they will face a shameful defeat. As a friend of our protagonist, a new task appeared. He needed to prove himself and deprive all the goblins of their heads. The guy, of course, liked it, because he was a professional in hand-to-hand combat, and this was his element. He felt as if the energy was spreading throughout his body along with the blood. His strength was concentrated in his hands. He began to strike at the goblins. He didn't have time to activate skills, he just needed to remember. Only the tower fight is always conducted instinctively, his body must remember all the movements. The guy began to remember various techniques, and now his first blow was successful. He chopped off the goblin's hand. Thus, the guy would be able to cope even without the help of skills. The girl looked at our main character in surprise, not understanding how he does it. After all, he did not have mana, without using any skills, only that he cut off the hand of a goblin. And this was just the beginning. Our main character was already preparing to cut all the other goblins apart. At this time, the other goblins did not know what to do, because even they did not expect such an outcome of events. Our main character really liked it, because he felt a sense of nostalgia, killing monsters for the past world. And the goblins, one by one, were dying before our eyes. The rest of the group froze upon seeing this. They didn't understand how this could happen. They just watched as the goblins fell to the ground one by one with severed limbs. And our main character really liked it, because he felt the taste of the battle, which he really lacked. Those two guys who a few minutes ago were discussing that our main character is not capable of anything, just stood and looked in surprise. And the red-haired girl thought to herself how he does it. He destroyed the strengthened goblin with one blow. The guy just stood with the ball and waited for the rest of the goblins to come up to them to destroy them. And the goblins, of course, went to him, because they wanted to avenge their brothers who had already died. More and more goblins kept coming from nowhere. Our main character is that the goblin can still run to survive, but whoever wants to stay and continue the battle will definitely die. With just one swing of the sword, the guy could cut off the head of a goblin. The girl tried to possess herself with herself, but she did not succeed well, and as soon as she saw the goblin, she was immediately lost. And those guys discussed among themselves how this is possible, because the guy at the first level and without a mat destroyed the goblins with ease. And, of course, they were excited by the fact that the guy was calm as a boa constrictor when destroying the goblins. Suddenly, the guy used some kind of technique and cut several goblins apart with one blow. All the other members of the group just stood up and watched as our protagonist took out the goblins. And the red-haired girl thought to herself that the guy was not doing any show or posturing, he was just filigree destroying monsters. Each hit reached the point where our protagonist wanted. The girls were wondering what our main character went through in the past dimension, that now he uses the sword so delicately. And at this moment, the goblins were already gradually beginning to end. The guy had the most effective technique for a real fight. The brother of the red-haired girl fought in much the same way, but he was still a master of the sword. Of course, the speed of water movement was a little worse than anything, but in technology he was not inferior in the slightest. But our main character only a few days ago became a future hero, and he is now only at the beginning of his journey. The girl was not interested only in the fact that he is like that too. After all, she took him to the team only because he was a friend of her friend and could not even imagine that he could fight like that. Suddenly, the girl's patron god, namely the Reaper god, said that the goddess of that guy may seem completely innocent, but in fact she is very prudent and well versed in people. He also added that perhaps our main character also has some hidden talents. And indeed, our main character was a warrior with great potential, which can be counted on the fingers of the world. The girl thought that it was unlikely that any clan would be able to get it, and her brother always complained that there were only parasites among the members of the clan. And then the thought came to her head that if she proposed the candidacy of our main character to her brother, they would be very lucky if the guy joined their family clan. The only problem was how to get him there. Suddenly, the Reaper told her that she could take advantage of the attractiveness of her body, but the girl immediately reacted sharply to this and said that she, of course, wants him to join the clan, but not so much. But God said that it was just a joke, and her reaction was quite suspicious. The girl looked scared. In the meantime, we will move to the launch hall of the Union, where everyone started from. People in tuxedos stood and discussed that now two returned in the same team and it is worth waiting for records, but one of the men said that this time the level of difficulty of the training was maximum and it was unlikely that a record would be set there. One of the girls asked why they increased the difficulty level of the test, to which the man replied that now it was very dangerous for her and that future heroes needed to be prepared as much as possible. The man also added that it is necessary to prepare the future heroes as much as possible for the events that will take place in the future. This frightened the woman, because she was afraid that many would not be able to pass this test. One of the guys in the suit suggested that the group of our protagonist and the red-haired girl would get there first. One of those standing there asked him why he thought that. To which he replied that this was the most likely outcome, because the red-haired girl had an older brother who could teach her a lot. This is true, because in Pangea there is a huge amount of evidence. For example, children in a family of magicians have magical abilities from birth. When suddenly they heard some steps, it meant that someone was already approaching the final. And really they did not hear, the doors began to open. And the team of our protagonist began to leave them. All team members were dirty and tired. The guy who was worth the bet said that it's not just that and that genetics does play a role. The scoreboard showed that they passed this test in 9 minutes 56 seconds, as it turned out, this was a new record. All of the trainers were shocked, because the difficulty level was increased, but the team of our main character was able to beat him. They were surprised, some of them even said that with the ballast, and they meant our main character, they were able to pass this test in less than 10 minutes. One of the clans said that this girl needs to be hired in order to stop this, regardless of price and budgets. Our main character was the last to leave, who was covered in blood and looked like a real ragamuffin. One of the clans asked who is this at all? To which the guy didn't answer. After some time, someone again worked on the horizontal bar. And it was, of course, our main character. A red-haired girl approached them and told him to stop making some strange sounds. But the guy did not betray this, because he trained, he did not care about the opinions of the people around him. Our main character was thinking about something all the time and seemed to be hovering somewhere in the clouds. He practiced more and more sword fighting tactics. His sword technique had already reached the 5th level, but he was not going to give up. The guy liked that during the test dungeon, his level increased dramatically as soon as he started killing goblins. During each training session, he thought about the fact that he wants to test again in order to improve his level. The guy believed that a real fight is the best training. Still, he constantly tested his basic techniques. Dialogue boxes constantly popped up, where he could see the progress of his training. And he was already able to reach level 6. He believed that at this rate, he would quickly reach his previous level, after which, of course, he would be able to go further and achieve tremendous power, which he could not even dream of before. In the past dimension, leveling up became something like a drug for him. He constantly wanted to develop. The red-haired girl periodically approached our main character and asked if it was hard for him, because the hands of our main character were already covered with calluses. But the guy always answered that he was fine. He believed that such hands should be in a real warrior. And he wondered why she didn't train herself. The guy didn't understand why the girl had been constantly next to him since they returned from the dungeon, and simply ignored the rest of the future heroes. The girl asked after training for our main character to come up to her and talk about something serious. The guy thought to himself that before he would have agreed without thinking, but now he will refuse because training was his priority, and he has no time for others. The guy apologized to the girl and said that he had to continue training. This greatly upset the girl, but she never said anything to him. She turned around, got ready to leave and finally asked the guy to tell her when he had time. The guy, of course, was interested in this red-haired girl, but he could not miss the chance given to him by fate. And now he decided to take up the throwing daggers that he wielded so well in the previous dimension. The guy understood that he couldn't concentrate all his attention on just one technique, so he tried to develop in many directions. Little by little, these trainings began to bear fruit for him. Training again, training was his slogan. The guy said that he couldn't rest when he received such a wonderful class. He also said that his patron god Hildegren is very cool, perhaps even cooler than she thinks about herself. When suddenly his goddess answered him in his bracelet, she told the guy that it was too late for him to realize this. The guy did not expect that she would answer him now, and he was very happy. She said that she took so long to respond because his spirit stone was too small. Of course, it was a joke. The guy thought to himself that she was not so omnipotent and that she was offended just like an ordinary person. He asked why she was upset with him. To which the goddess replied that she was not offended by him at all. The guy also asked if she gives him tasks that appear in his notification line. To which she replied that she partly influences the task, which surprised the guy very much, because he thought that only she gives the task. The guy asked if there was any task where he would simply lie on the ground and row with his hands, for example, and for this he would receive a huge number of stat points. But the goddess replied that this was beyond her capabilities. This made the guy a little upset, but he understood that he couldn't stop training. The goddess of heroes said that it is not typical for a real hero to run away from difficulties. But our main character asked, if the hero's path is so difficult, then what is the point of becoming one? The villain feels best now. And as a result, the heroes always remain on the sidelines, because power rules the world. Personally, for our main character, strength is martial arts. In the end, he said that he wanted the goddess to fill him with tasks as she should so that he could improve his characteristics. The goddess asked why I gave her such punishment, and why she got such award. Suddenly, out of nowhere a voice appeared that said that now would be the last training session. It was the same man in a tuxedo who said that soon everyone who was in that room would leave the planet. This separated them. Anyone who wants to go to Pangea will have to go through the dungeon of proof. Our main character got a little tense after this, because he had never heard of such a dungeon. This dungeon was located in the dimension between Earth and Pangea. This did not belong to either one or the other worlds. This place was created by the Mother Goddess in order to protect underprepared future heroes. There were not only goblins in that place that were specially created for training. There were real monsters there who actually want to kill. A man in a tuxedo said that if someone is scared, then they can leave now, because if they go further, they will no longer have the option to go back. Those who have already become heroes will not be able to enter the dungeon. This place is only for future heroes. However, they would be able to monitor those who entered this dungeon, which meant that the clan representatives would still be able to monitor them in real time. Each of the future heroes will also be given magical armor, but this is just a minimum security measure. Some of the guys were already happy that they would have at least some armor. But immediately after these words, the guy in the tuxedo said that they were giving it away for a while and would need to return it after training. And immediately everyone rushed to look for suitable equipment for themselves. Of course, our main character also went to select ammunition for himself. There were various weapons from shields to machine guns. Our main character asked the instructor if there was some kind of fabric armor that provides protection and also does not hinder movement. But the instructor replied that the guy just took what he had. The guy was a little upset, but he understood that he could only come to terms with it and take what he had. He chose strong equipment made of tanned leather. He couldn't find anything better there. It was ordinary armor with rather weak protection and low durability. The man in the tuxedo said that the time to choose armor is over and the test begins now. He Also finally said that for all future heroes to prove that they are worthy, because in the world of heroes you can die and you need to kill. Out of nowhere, light began to appear around. It was somewhat similar to a portal. One of the guys started asking if they would really go there without the help of instructors. There were real monsters there. Our main character just laughed when he heard this, because for him, the past dimension is one and the same, the scenery is just changing. That is why he was confident in his abilities. Some kind of beam appeared from this portal, which was rapidly approaching all the future heroes. Our main character spent 7 years in the past dimension and was able to rise from the bottom. He had to do it again. But now he already had experience and good fighting technique. A few seconds later the guy moved to some incomprehensible dark place. The teleportation started to give him a headache. When suddenly the guy heard some movement, he immediately grabbed his sword. He thought that these were monsters. He was already preparing to strike the first blow at the place where the sounds were heard. When suddenly he saw that the red-haired girl was walking towards him with the magician. She asked how our main character was feeling. The magician girl asked if this was the guy the red-haired girl was talking about, to which she replied that it was so, and Luck smiled on him. Guy, something is wrong because they should have been scattered in different places after they crossed the gate. The girl said that now that they have found our main character, their group will be successful. To which the magician girl smirked and said, "Is the red-haired girl really sure of this, because the guy does not even have mana, and he will not be able to use skills?" Suddenly, a huge number of future heroes come out of nowhere, and in front of them was a guy who was with our main character in the group during the last test. He said that he saw everything with his own eyes, and our main character has a brilliant power. But for some reason, he called our main character a different name, which greatly embarrassed our main character. If you have watched up to this point, then I am very grateful to you, because this is where the video ends. If it's not difficult for you, then like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to continue this story, then write in the comments. Thank you all, I love you all.